In the deep waters of the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of Nova Scotia, John Mercer was living out his routine day of commercial fishing. It was a crisp morning on June 8, 2011. John had been a fisherman all his life, following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather. The sea was his second home, and he knew its moods and mysteries well. He and his crew had set out early from the small harbor town of Southport, a place known for its robust fishing industry and hardy seafaring folk. John's boat, the Sea Voyager, was a sturdy vessel well equipped for the challenges of deep-sea fishing. On this particular day, the sea was calm, the sky clear, and the promise of a good catch was in the air. John's crew, consisting of his longtime friends Ray Miller and Tom Green, were in high spirits, bantering and working efficiently as they prepared the lines and nets for the day's fishing. The target of their expedition was the swordfish, a prized catch in these waters. Swordfish were known for their long, sharp bills and powerful bodies. They could grow up to 15 feet in length and weigh over 1,000 pounds. These fish were fast and aggressive, often putting up a fierce fight when hooked. John had encountered swordfish before, but each encounter was unique, demanding skill, strength, and a bit of luck. As the morning turned into afternoon, the Sea Voyager moved further into the deep waters. John kept a watchful eye on the sonar, looking for signs of the big fish. The sun was high in the sky, casting a shimmering path on the blue expanse of the ocean. The crew had already caught a good haul of smaller fish, and the mood on the boat was buoyant. Around mid-afternoon, the sonar pinged with a large, fast-moving object. John's heart quickened. This could be the swordfish they were after. He signaled to his crew, and they sprang into action, preparing the heavy-duty fishing gear designed for such a formidable opponent. The anticipation was palpable as they waited for the fish to take the bait. Suddenly, there was a violent tug on the line. John knew immediately that they had hooked something big. The rod bent under the immense pressure and the line whizzed out rapidly. John braced himself, gripping the rod firmly as the boat rocked from the force of the struggle. The fight was on, and it was clear that this swordfish was not going to be an easy catch. The swordfish thrashed wildly, its strength and determination evident in every pull and twist. John's muscles strained as he battled to keep control of the rod. The fish surged, diving deep and then bursting upwards, its sharp bill cutting through the water with deadly precision. Each movement sent shockwaves through the line, testing the limits of John's endurance and skill. Ray and Tom watched with bated breath, ready to assist but knowing that this was John's fight. The swordfish was relentless, and John had to use every ounce of his experience to anticipate its moves and counter them. The boat pitched and rolled, the sound of the line cutting through the water echoing in the tense silence. The swordfish made a sudden, powerful lunge towards the boat. Its bill struck the hull with a resounding thud, sending a shiver through the vessel. John's grip slipped momentarily, but he quickly regained control, tightening his hold on the rod. The fish circled the boat, its dorsal fin slicing through the water menacingly. John could feel the burn in his arms and back, the physical toll of the struggle becoming more intense. Sweat dripped down his face and he gritted his teeth, refusing to let the fish win. He knew that one wrong move could result in serious damage to the boat or injury to himself or his crew. The stakes were high and the swordfish seemed to know it, fighting with a ferocity that matched John's resolve. The fish made another charge at the boat, this time coming dangerously close to the deck. Its sharp bill slashed through the air, and John had to duck to avoid being hit. The crew scrambled, trying to keep the lines clear and the boat steady. The swordfish was now right alongside the boat, its massive body churning the water into a frothy swirl. With a final desperate effort, John pulled with all his might. The swordfish resisted, but gradually the powerful fish began to tire. Its thrashes became less violent, and its movements more sluggish. John seized the moment, using his experience to guide the fish closer to the boat. Ray and Tom moved in, ready with gaffs to secure the catch. The swordfish gave one last weak thrash as it was brought alongside the boat. John's muscles screamed in protest, but he held on, refusing to let go. Ray and Tom managed to secure the fish, hauling it aboard with a triumphant yell. The massive swordfish lay on the deck, its body still quivering with the remnants of its fierce struggle. John collapsed onto a crate, his body shaking with exhaustion and relief. The swordfish was a magnificent specimen, a testament to the raw power of the ocean. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the hard-won victory. They had faced the might of the sea and emerged victorious, a reminder of the perilous nature of their work and the respect it demanded. One afternoon in 2011, Amelia Sinclair, a 32-year-old marketing executive from New York, decided it would be an exhilarating experience to cool off in the crystal-clear waters off the coast of her resort in Nassau, the Bahamas. Amelia had always loved the ocean and became enchanted with the vast array of sea life present in these tropical waters. She had just drifted off into a peaceful float when she saw a dorsal fin rising through the waves not far from her. Amelia exclaimed, looking at what seemed to be a dolphin filled with excitement. Dolphins were her favorite animals. She hoped to spot some during her vacation. She didn't hesitate but started swimming towards the fin, eager to get a closer look at the creature. The closer she got, though, the more erratic and aggressive the dolphin movements began to seem to Amelia than what she would expect. The dorsal fin also appeared much larger than that of a typical dolphin. Then a huge gray body broke the surface, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was no dolphin at all, but a huge bull shark, one of the ocean's deadliest predators. Amelia's heart raced as she realized the gross mistake she had just made. Bull sharks were extremely territorial and known to be aggressive toward humans, responsible for many unprovoked attacks every year. She did realize, though, that she would get away from the shark fast. It was charging toward her with its powerful physique. Fast thinking, Amelia looked around her and saw a large driftwood floating nearby. She grabbed and held it out, fending off the shark's repeated advances with a makeshift weapon. The bull shark thrashed and circled her, its black eyes locked on its potential prey. Amelia struggled to fend off the relentless shark, her arms growing weary from the desperate effort. Just as she felt her strength fading and hope slipping away, the distant hum of a boat engine reached her ears, signaling a glimmer of rescue when she needed it most. A small charter fishing vessel had spotted the commotion and was racing toward her. The captain and his first mate began yelling and throwing a life preserver toward Amelia as the boat drew closer. She gratefully grabbed the line and they pulled her to safety just as the shark lunged in her direction. Finally, safe aboard, Amelia collapsed, shaking from adrenaline and fear of her near-death experience. The captain radioed his report to the Coast Guard, and soon, a team of marine biologists and emergency responders was on the scene. Amelia was rushed to a local hospital where doctors checked her up and treated the minor cuts and scrapes she had sustained from the shark attack. She was kept overnight for observation, much to the relief of her worried parents back home in New York, whom she got in touch with quickly to recount the harrowing ordeal. Amelia told the doctors that she could not believe she had mistaken a shark for a dolphin and thought she was going to die out there. The bull shark was much bigger and more aggressive than she had ever imagined. Amelia was grateful to the fishermen who saved her in time. The marine biologists responding to the scene were astounded that Amelia could keep the shark at bay with the driftwood that long. They commended her presence of mind and bravery in the face of such a dangerous predator. Dr. Sofia Martinez, the lead marine biologist on the scene, explained that bull sharks were among the most aggressive shark species, responsible for a disproportionately high number of attacks on humans, and that Miss Sinclair was able to hold the shark at bay for several minutes before help arrived was truly remarkable. She was very lucky to be alive. The next day, still in shock but relieved, Amelia told her story to the local authorities in the hospital. She gave a full statement, hoping that her experience would allow others to learn how dangerous it was not to recognize sharks as being different from other fish. Yet despite the psychological scarring, Amelia refused to allow the incident to destroy her love for the ocean. She pledged always to be better informed about marine life and more careful when venturing into unfamiliar waters. For the remainder of her holiday, she avoided all beaches with large numbers of sharks. Upon her return to New York, Amelia began to appreciate the power and unpredictability of apex predators in the ocean. Certainly the trauma from her encounter with the bull shark would not just disappear, but she knew she now had the appreciation that was needed all along, respect for what lay below, both in terms of wonder and danger. The mangroves of Florida's Cedar Key, a small coastal town, were teeming with life on a warm day in June 2007. Cedar Key was known for its serene waters and rich marine biodiversity. The mangrove channels were a favorite spot for kayakers, offering a peaceful retreat and a chance to observe the diverse wildlife. The area was particularly known for its population of bull sharks, formidable predators that often ventured into shallow waters. Jess Morton, a seasoned adventurer with a love for kayaking, had decided to spend her day exploring these tranquil waters. Jess had been to Cedar Key many times before, drawn by the beauty of the mangroves and the thrill of encountering wildlife. She had set out early that morning, her kayak gliding smoothly through the calm water as she paddled deeper into the mangrove maze. Jess was well aware of the presence of bull sharks in these waters. Bull sharks were known for their aggressive and territorial nature. Unlike other sharks, they could thrive in both salt and fresh water, making them frequent visitors to coastal areas and river mouths. They were powerful predators, capable of sudden bursts of speed and displaying unpredictable behavior. Despite this knowledge, Jess felt confident in her abilities and was prepared to handle any situation that might arise. The morning had been perfect so far. The sun cast a warm glow over the water and the mangroves provided a canopy of shade. Jess enjoyed the peacefulness of the surroundings, the rhythmic sound of her paddle slicing through the water, and the occasional splash of fish darting beneath her kayak. She had seen a variety of birds, crabs, and even a few dolphins in the distance. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jess decided to explore a particularly narrow channel, hoping to spot more wildlife. She paddled slowly, her eyes scanning the water and the dense mangrove roots. The air was thick with the sounds of nature, the rustling of leaves, the calls of birds, and the distant hum of insects. It was a perfect day for an adventure, and Jess felt completely at ease. Suddenly, a large splash disrupted the tranquility. Jess paused, her paddle suspended in midair as she scanned the water. A dark shape moved beneath the surface, circling her kayak. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized it was a bull shark, drawn by the splashing of her paddle. The shark bumped the kayak aggressively, causing it to rock back and forth. Jess's calm paddle turned into a tense standoff. The shark circled her kayak, its dorsal fin cutting through the water with an air of menace. Jess gripped her paddle tightly, her mind racing. She knew she had to stay calm and avoid further provoking the shark. Her kayak, though sturdy, felt vulnerable against the raw power of the predator circling her. The bull shark bumped the kayak again, harder this time. Jess struggled to maintain her balance, her heart pounding in her chest. She had read about bull sharks' territorial behavior, and she knew that this encounter could quickly turn dangerous. Her peaceful exploration had turned into a fight for survival. As the shark continued to circle, Jess began to paddle slowly towards the shore, trying to appear calm despite the terror gripping her. She kept her eyes on the shark, ready to defend herself if it attacked. The shoreline seemed impossibly far away, and every second felt like an eternity. The shark made another pass, this time bumping the kayak with such force that Jess nearly lost her balance. She used her paddle to push the shark away, a desperate move to keep it at bay. The shark, undeterred, continued its aggressive behavior, circling closer with each pass. Jess knew she had to act quickly if she wanted to make it out of this encounter unscathed. With every stroke of her paddle, Jess felt the weight of the shark's presence, its predatory instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. The water, once a source of tranquility, now felt like a battleground. Jess's muscles burned with the effort of paddling, but she pushed on, driven by the instinct to survive. The bull shark's aggression intensified as Jess paddled furiously towards the shore. Each time the shark bumped her kayak, it sent waves of fear through her. The kayak rocked violently, and Jess had to use all her strength to stay upright. She knew that if she capsized, she would be even more vulnerable to an attack. The shore, though still distant, was her only hope of escape. Jess's mind raced as she tried to remember everything she knew about bull sharks. They were known to be highly territorial and unpredictable, especially when they felt threatened. She had to stay calm and focused, using her paddle as both a means of propulsion and a weapon. She struck the water near the shark, hoping to scare it off. But the shark seemed undeterred, its predatory instincts overriding any fear. As Jess paddled, the shark made a sudden aggressive move, striking the side of her kayak with tremendous force. The impact nearly knocked her overboard, and Jess had to use all her strength to keep from capsizing. The kayak spun slightly, throwing her off course and further away from the safety of the shore. Jess felt a surge of panic but forced herself to remain composed. She couldn't afford to lose control now. The shark circled again, this time coming even closer. Jess could see its dark shape beneath the surface, moving with terrifying speed and precision. She swung her paddle at the shark, hitting it on the nose. The shark veered away momentarily, but it was clear that it was not deterred. Jess's arms ached from the effort, but she continued to paddle, her determination fueled by the will to survive. As the shark closed in for another strike, Jess braced herself, gripping her paddle tightly. The shark hit the kayak again, harder this time, causing the kayak to tilt dangerously. Jess fought to maintain her balance, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The shark's eyes, cold and calculating, were fixed on her, and she could feel its predatory energy. In a desperate attempt to protect herself, Jess swung her paddle with all her might, aiming for the shark's gills. The paddle connected with a solid thud, and the shark recoiled, momentarily stunned. Jess seized the opportunity to paddle with renewed vigor, her arms burning with the effort. The shore was still a distant goal, but she could see it more clearly now, a beacon of hope in the chaos. The bull shark, undeterred by the blow, resumed its aggressive circling. Jess knew she had to stay focused and not let fear overwhelm her. Each stroke of the paddle brought her closer to safety, but the shark's relentless pursuit made every second feel like an eternity. The water churned around her, a maelstrom of fear and desperation. As Jess neared the shallows, the shark made one final desperate lunge at her kayak. The impact was so powerful that it nearly knocked her out of the boat. Jess clung to the sides of the kayak, her knuckles white with the effort. The shark's teeth scraped against the bottom of the kayak, a chilling reminder of the predator's power. With a final desperate push, Jess paddled into the shallows. The shark, unable to follow her into the shallow water, circled one last time before retreating into the depths. Jess collapsed in her kayak, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. She had made it to safety, but the ordeal had left her shaken to the core. As she dragged her kayak onto the shore, Jess's mind replayed the encounter in vivid detail. The bull shark's aggressive behavior had been a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature. The serene beauty of the mangroves had given way to a fierce struggle for survival, and Jess knew she would never forget the lessons learned that day. Jess sat on the shore, her kayak beside her, and took a moment to gather her thoughts. She had faced one of nature's most formidable predators and survived. It was 2010, one of those sun-dappled days in the Florida Keys. The turquoise waters of the Atlantic were beckoning to the scores of divers and spearfishermen who came to this famed diving destination. Among them was 42-year-old Eddie Grayson, who had over 10 years as a professional spearfisherman. His wetsuit-clad form glided effortlessly through the shallowing depths, carpeted with coral boulders, while looking for his next prize catch. The Florida Keys was a real spearfishing paradise, full of abundant, highly sought-after species: grouper, snapper, and other prized fish. Over the years, he had learned how to read his quarry's shifting currents and movements, striking with pinpoint precision. That day, he was determined to bag a few good-sized groupers and return them to his local seafood market, which was in high demand. An hour of patience detailed sweeping over the reefs and ledges was rewarded as Eddie's sharp eyes finally locked onto a large grouper, hovering over a big, jagged coral head. He slowly and silently positioned himself, took good care in aiming, and speared the fish with a mighty thrust of his spear gun through the midsection. Pleased with his catch, he started swimming upward, his prized grouper in tow. A searing, sinking pain suddenly shot through Eddie's right arm, and with a muffled cry of agony, he dropped the grouper, which tumbled back into the azure depths. Whirling in panic, he turned to find himself face to face with a massive barracuda just an arm's length away. Its gaping jaws, lined with razor-sharp teeth, seemed poised for another strike, ready to deliver a deadly blow. Eddie's heart pounded in his chest as he stared into the predatory eyes of the fearsome fish. This barracuda was not going to back down. Known for their aggressive, predatory nature and flash attacks, this one had probably been attracted by the smell of blood from the speared grouper, and now mistook the spearfisherman for its next meal. Eddie's heart began to race as he realized how precarious the situation he had landed in. Barracudas are among the most vicious apex predators, and a full-on attack by one would be fatal. He needed to think fast to fend off the barracuda and return safely to his boat. Without hesitation, Eddie thrashed and kicked violently to put as much space as he could between himself and the relentless predator circling him. The barracuda, undeterred, kept after him with chomping jaws inches from Eddie's quivering, unprotected body. He felt the icy, hard scales of the barracuda almost scraping his skin, as it had done many times already in its attempt to clamp down on him. With a surge of adrenaline, Eddie began to look in every direction for a path of flight or refuge from the killing frenzy. He sprinted towards a small, narrow fissure in the nearby reef and dived into it with the hope of taking cover there and shaking the barracuda in the tight, convoluted spaces of the coral. As he squeezed through the narrow opening, so did the barracuda, its tremendous and powerful body wedging into the confined space. Now the two were locked in an immovable standoff as the barracuda thrashed and snapped wildly in a struggle to devour its prey. Trapped and running perilously low on air, Eddie knew he had to act fast. Summoning every ounce of strength and courage, he started punching and kicking at the barracuda, trying to get blows into the creature's sensitive eyes and gills. Dazed by this quite unexpected assault, the barracuda recoiled for a moment, and Eddie took the opportunity to slip free and make a desperate dash for the surface. Breaking out of the water, he gasped for air, his arms and chest throbbing from the barracuda's savage attack. He scanned frantically across the surface and saw his boat only a short way away. Summoning up the last of his energy, Eddie swam towards it and hauled himself onto the deck, finally safe from the jaws of the relentless predator, which later went back to the deep waters. Still in shock, his heart racing wildly in his chest, Eddie examined his wounds once on board. He had a deep laceration in the right arm, punctured several times by these razor-sharp barracuda teeth. The wounds were very painful but not life-threatening, fortunately. They would no doubt require immediate medical treatment. Shaken, spent, and still in shock from the experience, Eddie radioed the Coast Guard and was attended within minutes. Assessing the condition of Eddie, the Coast Guard crew whisked him away to the nearest hospital, where the doctors could attend properly to his wounds. In the hospital, doctors cleaned and dressed Eddie's wounds, congratulating him on his presence of mind and his sheer resilience in the wake of such a harrowing, life-threatening attack. They were just in disbelief that he had escaped the jaws of one of the ocean's most formidable predators relatively unscathed. As Eddie recovered, he played the experience over and over again in his mind. For the first time in his life, he had witnessed the naked, brutal power of the sea, something he had learned as a basic lesson about underlying risk and unpredictability in the underwater world. It had been an experience he would never forget, and now he knew he would enter into every future spearfishing outing with a much sharper eye out for nature's sometimes deadly forces. Within days, Eddie's story spread from person to person within the local diving and fishing communities, its dramatic details easily captivating audiences. Many were impressed with his pluck and quick thinking during such a harrowing attack, while others warned of the risks of spearfishing in aggressive territories of marine life. It had been a very sober awakening for Eddie. All his life, he had prided himself on being an accomplished, seasoned spearfisherman who knew much about the ocean and its residents. Yet this encounter had served as a rude shake to his confidence that suddenly made him realize that any diver could become just another of the ocean's meals, no matter how seasoned. Eddie spent some time off spearfishing to recover physically and emotionally. He knew he had to process the trauma from the attack, regain his confidence in his ability to protect himself, and learn how to feel safe again within his underwater world. Eddie paused and asked himself one question during that time: whether he would ever return to a sport once so dear to him. Meanwhile, the huge barracuda that nailed Eddie roamed back into the big blue expanse of the Florida Keys, a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between man and nature. The incident reignited discussions within the diving and fishing communities about respecting apex ocean predators and creating greater education and awareness among recreational divers and spearfishermen. Eddie learned many valuable lessons from his encounter with the large barracuda. The incident left an indelible mark on his body and mind. The scars on his arm were a perpetual reminder of the ocean's mighty power and unpredictable nature. It was a sunny day in July 2005 on the coast of Mexico, specifically near a small, picturesque town called Puerto Nuevo. The town was known for its breathtaking beaches and ideal surfing conditions, attracting surfers from all around the world. This particular day, the beach was bustling with activity as the waves were just right for surfing. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the sand and surf, making it a perfect day for the sport. Among the surfers was Max Turner, a seasoned surfer with years of experience riding the waves. Max had been visiting Puerto Nuevo for the past 5 summers. Drawn by the challenge and beauty of the waves, he was joined by his friends Ben Harper and Lucy Caldwell, who shared his passion for surfing. The trio had spent the morning catching waves and enjoying the ocean's rhythm, feeling at one with the sea. Puerto Nuevo was also known for its diverse marine life. The waters were home to a variety of species, including the majestic stingrays. These creatures, though usually docile, could become dangerous if provoked or threatened. They often buried themselves in the sand, making them almost invisible to the unsuspecting eye. The locals were well aware of their presence and exercised caution, but for many visitors, the stingrays were an unseen hazard lurking beneath the waves. As the day progressed, Max, Ben, and Lucy decided to take a break and rest on their surfboards, floating gently on the water's surface. They chatted about the waves they had ridden and the ones they hoped to catch later. The conversation was light, filled with laughter and excitement for the day ahead. Around noon, the tide began to change and the waves grew more powerful. The trio prepared to catch the next set of waves, their anticipation building. Max positioned himself, ready to paddle into the approaching wave, when he suddenly felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his leg. It was as if a hot knife had sliced through his flesh. Shocked and disoriented, Max looked down to see the dark shape of a giant stingray beneath him. Its tail, armed with a venomous barb, had struck him with precision. The pain was excruciating, radiating from the wound and causing his leg to go numb. Max's heart raced as he tried to stay afloat, the realization of what had happened dawning on him. He struggled to maintain his balance on the surfboard, his mind clouded with pain and fear. Ben and Lucy, noticing his distress, quickly paddled over to help. Max's leg throbbed with pain as the venom from the stingray's barb began to spread. The wound bled profusely, staining the water around him. His friends reached him just in time, supporting him and helping him stay on his board. They knew they had to get him back to shore as quickly as possible. With every movement, the pain intensified, but Max fought to stay conscious. His vision blurred as he clung to his surfboard, relying on Ben and Lucy to guide him to safety. They paddled with all their strength, their faces etched with concern and determination. The beach, which had seemed so inviting just moments ago, now felt impossibly far away. As they approached the shore, the lifeguards on duty noticed the commotion and rushed to assist. They helped Max out of the water, laying him gently on the sand. His leg was swollen and discolored, and the stingray's venom was causing severe inflammation. The lifeguards quickly applied a makeshift bandage to the wound and called for medical assistance. Finally, the sound of the approaching ambulance broke through the haze of pain. The medics rushed to Max's side, assessing his condition with practiced efficiency. They quickly administered pain relief and began to treat the wound, carefully extracting the stingray's barb. The pain subsided slightly as the medication took effect, but Max knew he was far from being out of danger. The venom's effects could be severe, and he would need immediate medical attention to prevent complications. The doctors explained that stingray encounters, while rare, could be extremely dangerous. The venom could cause severe pain, tissue damage, and even systemic complications if not treated promptly. Max listened, absorbing the information with a newfound respect for the ocean's hidden threats. He realized how fortunate he was to have received immediate assistance and how different the outcome could have been without it. An idyllic 2014 kayaking holiday with the Williamson family down the Daly River in the Northern Territory of Australia has become any family's worst nightmare after the kayakers entered saltwater crocodile territory. Michael and Sarah Williamson, with their 12-year-old son Jack, had been luxuriating in the lush, winding waterways, diving headfirst into the wildest beauty the Australian outback had to offer. As the paddling extended further upstream into the estuary, all the excitement within the family members suddenly turned into anxiety. The earlier attractive water became murky, and the vegetation was fast, giving long shadows along the shore. Sarah turned to Michael and shared her uneasy feelings about the surroundings. At first, Jack could only make out that most dreadful confirmation of their worst fears, a half-submerged log off the bank. Dismayed, they suddenly saw it was nothing but the unmistakable shape of a huge saltwater crocodile, with only its half-submerged eyes out of the water. With great self-restraint, Michael instructed his family to stay calm, begin paddling toward shore, and not make any sudden movements. They did just that, paddling slowly, not taking their eyes off the unmoving predator. Every second it seemed like they would make it to shore without any problems. But almost immediately all those dreams came crashing down as the crocodile lunged at them suddenly in the next instant, with frightful velocity. Michael screamed at his family, asking them to paddle for their lives, the ferocious paddling turning away from rowing with wild abandon as they splashed water in the air and rowed towards the nearest bank. But the effort proved in vain. The crocodile matched their pace and was faster. Its bulk easily cleaved the water. In a pulse-pounding moment, the creature sprang, its enormous jaws clamping onto the back of Michael and Jack's kayak. The force of the attack sent both father and son tumbling into the depths, and Sarah watched helplessly in horror as her husband and son disappeared beneath the surface. She had already arrived near the bank in her kayak. The paternal instincts came to the fore as Michael managed to panic in the water. Breaking the surface and gasping, he looked around for Jack. As luck would have it, Jack's head broke the water's surface a few meters away, then coughed and spluttered. Michael shouted to Sarah to throw them the paddles from her kayak. As Michael and Jack grabbed the paddles, the water splashed around them. The crocodile had finished their kayak and was now on its living target. Michael told Jack to keep close to him as he was getting ready to fight off this creature. Ancient, predatory eyes watched the pitiful humans as the great beast charged. With all his strength, Michael struck the reptile's nose, and though Jack shivered with fear, he boldly followed his father's lead. Father and son swung at the gator's muzzle together as the menace lunged again. Sarah stayed in her kayak, torn between the drive to save her family and the realization that she would just end up dead in the water if she got in. That was when she decided to splash as much as possible with her paddle to distract the crocodile. Michael took the opportunity as the croc was about to let go of his meal and instructed Jack to swim toward the shore. As Sarah swam to the bank, she noticed a small rocky island only a couple of yards from the beach and motioned them toward it as it was much nearer than the bank. The family fought helplessly, with Sarah paddling toward Jack and Michael, prepared to whack the crocodile away if it pushed closer. The crocodile lunged one more time as they neared the island, and its jaws snapped shut just a few inches from Jack's legs. In one last surge of furious protection, Michael smacked his paddle at the crocodile's head with increasing force, hitting it on the side of its head and momentarily stunning it. It was all they needed, his tiny moment of hesitation. With a final burst of energy, they hauled themselves onto the jagged shore of the small island. Gasping for breath, they collapsed on the rough ground, their bodies trembling from sheer exhaustion and overwhelming fear. Michael quickly checked to see if everyone was all right, while Sarah, consumed by relief, clung tightly to Jack, vowing never to let him go. In what seemed a never-ending day, the family tried to nap on a little haven near the rocky island, where the sun had started setting and casting long shadows on the water. The crocodile did not move further. It just sat a fixed presence with its prehistoric eyes, never leaving Sarah. She blamed Michael for what had happened. It was meant to be a fun family vacation, but now it has become a nightmare. Michael apologized for not researching the area better, but Jack told his father that no one could have known about the crocodiles. The sounds of the Australian wild seemed amplified, merging with Jack's soft whines as he shivered, cold and wet. Sarah tried to comfort him with stories of happier times, recalling better experiences. The family shared a quiet laugh, remembering the infamous sunburn that had left Michael's neck and back painfully red during a previous beach trip. The memory brought a brief moment of warmth and connection, easing the tension of their current ordeal. Michael told them he'd check the island's perimeter to find a better place to signal for help. While he was out, Jack asked his mother if they were going to die on this island. Sarah pacified her little boy, saying that more often than not, being brave doesn't mean that a person is not scared, just that he should have done what he needed. Michael came back, assuring his family that the island was not that big. but he had found a slight rise where they would be recognized easily by anyone looking around for them. What followed was long hours of silent and motionless watch over the crocodile, sometimes diving under the water and coming up again nearer the island, testing their nerve. As the first light of dawn began to break, Jack heard the distant sound of a helicopter engine. As the helicopter appeared over the tree line with its searchlight across the river, the family began waving their arms aloft and shouting at the tops of their heads. There was a harrowing moment when it almost seemed that the helicopter would bypass them altogether. But then the beam swiveled toward them as it caught their little island with its cast of light. A rescue worker was winched onto the island, quickly confirming their identities before rapidly assessing the situation. He urged them to move quickly. The crocodile remained in the area. One by one, the family was lifted into the helicopter, each feeling relief. As they ascended, they finally caught a glimpse of the full size of the colossal, prehistoric-looking creature that had relentlessly pursued them, its massive form a stark reminder of their narrow escape. As they all huddled together inside the helicopter, the family was clutching on one another, bringing home the full realization of their ordeal and how close they were to death that afternoon. The pilot said they were lucky, as few people survived encounters with saltwater crocodiles. The Williamson were fortunate to have survived the ordeal as they left the island with the crocodile still roaming in the waters, probably looking for other prey. The bond within the Williamson family had been tested and solidified unimaginably. Their kayaking trip might have turned deadly, but love, dedication, and determination had seen it through. The memory of their encounter with the crocodile would be etched into them forever, a testament to their resiliency and the power of family. In the clear, warm waters off the coast of the Bahamas, Eli Novak was experiencing one of the most beautiful days of his life. It was June 15, 2009, and he had taken a trip to a small island called Coral Cay, renowned for its vibrant reefs and diverse marine life. Eli, an avid snorkeler, had been looking forward to this trip for months. Coral Cay was a haven for snorkelers and divers, offering a window into a world teeming with colorful fish, coral formations, and an array of sea creatures. Eli had spent the morning exploring the shallow reefs near the shore. The sun was high in the sky, casting a golden hue over the crystal-clear water. Schools of fish darted around him, and the coral reefs below were a riot of color and movement. He felt a sense of peace and awe, floating weightlessly in the warm water, completely immersed in the underwater paradise. Eli wore his usual snorkeling gear: fins, a mask, a snorkel, and a sleek dive watch. The watch, a gift from his father, was a prized possession, not just for its functionality, but also for its sentimental value. Little did Eli know the glint of the watch in the sunlight would soon attract unwanted attention. Barracudas were common in the waters around Coral Cay. These sleek, torpedo-shaped fish were known for their speed and sharp teeth. They were usually curious but could become aggressive if they felt threatened or were attracted to shiny objects. Locals often warned snorkelers and divers to avoid wearing jewelry or anything reflective. But Eli, in his excitement, had forgotten this crucial advice. After several hours of snorkeling, Eli decided to venture a bit further from the shore to explore a particularly vibrant section of the reef he had spotted earlier. He swam slowly, taking in the sights, the tranquility of the underwater world enveloping him. The water was warm and clear, the sunlight creating dancing patterns on the sandy bottom. He felt completely at ease, unaware of the danger that lurked nearby. As Eli floated above the reef, marveling at a school of parrotfish nibbling on the coral, he noticed a sudden change in the water's ambiance. The smaller fish scattered, and an eerie silence fell over the reef. Eli's heart began to race as he sensed something was wrong. He turned his head and saw a large silvery shape gliding towards him. It was a barracuda, its long, slender body moving with effortless grace. The barracuda's eyes locked onto Eli, and he could see the creature's sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. The fish seemed to be fixated on his dive watch, the metallic gleam drawing it closer. Eli's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the potential danger. He had heard stories of barracudas being attracted to shiny objects, mistaking them for prey, but he had never imagined he would find himself in such a situation. The barracuda continued to circle him, its movements quick and deliberate. Eli tried to remain calm, knowing that sudden movements could provoke an attack. He kept his eyes on the fish, trying to gauge its intentions. The once peaceful swim had turned into a tense standoff, and Eli knew he needed to think quickly to avoid a dangerous encounter. He slowly began to back away, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. The barracuda followed, maintaining a constant distance, its eyes never leaving the glinting watch. Eli's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. The shore seemed miles away, and he knew he had to stay calm and avoid panic if he wanted to make it back safely. The minutes felt like hours as Eli carefully maneuvered through the water, the barracuda's presence a constant threat. He tried to recall everything he knew about these predators, hoping to find a way to deter the fish without provoking it. The underwater world that had seemed so welcoming just moments ago now felt like a perilous maze, with each movement calculated to avoid triggering an attack. The tension in the water was palpable as Eli continued his slow retreat. The barracuda's eyes remained fixed on him, its body moving with a predatory grace. Eli's mind was a whirlwind of fear and strategy. He knew that barracudas were known for their sudden bursts of speed and their sharp, needle-like teeth. Any wrong move could trigger an attack. Eli kept his movements smooth and controlled, trying to create as little disturbance as possible. The shore seemed impossibly far, but he focused on each small movement, inching his way closer to safety. The barracuda followed, its interest in the shiny watch undiminished. Eli's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder of the danger he was in. As Eli swam, he noticed a cluster of rocks ahead. He decided to use them as a potential barrier between himself and the barracuda. Slowly, he moved towards the rocks, careful not to make any sudden movements. The barracuda's eyes tracked him, but it didn't change its course. Eli reached the rocks and positioned himself behind them, hoping the barrier would obscure the glint of the watch. For a moment, it seemed to work. The barracuda circled the rocks, its interest waning. Eli took a deep breath, his body trembling with tension. He waited, hoping the fish would lose interest and swim away. But then the barracuda darted around the rocks, coming face to face with Eli once more. Its eyes locked onto the watch, and Eli knew he had to act fast. With no other options, Eli decided to try a bold move. He quickly unfastened the watch and tossed it a few feet away. The shiny object caught the barracuda's attention, and the fish darted towards it. Seizing the opportunity, Eli swam as fast as he could towards the shore. His heart raced, adrenaline pumping through his veins as he put distance between himself and the barracuda. Eli could feel the strain in his muscles as he swam with all his might. The shore was still a distance away, but he pushed on, driven by the will to survive. He glanced back and saw the barracuda circling the watch, its interest momentarily diverted. He knew he couldn't slow down. Any hesitation could be disastrous. The water around Eli churned with his frantic movements, but he forced himself to stay focused. Each stroke brought him closer to the shore, the promise of safety spurring him on. He could see the outline of the boat he had come from, a beacon of hope in the tumultuous sea. The distance seemed to shrink, but not fast enough for his racing heart. As Eli neared the boat, he saw his friend Sarah waving frantically from the deck. She had noticed his distress and was calling out to him, though her words were lost in the chaos of the moment. Eli swam harder, his arms and legs burning with exertion. The barracuda was still circling the watch, but he knew it wouldn't stay distracted for long. With one final burst of energy, Eli reached the boat. Sarah leaned over, grabbing his arms and helping him scramble aboard. He collapsed onto the deck, his body shaking with exhaustion and relief. The barracuda, now far behind, continued to circle the discarded watch, unaware that its intended prey had escaped. Eli lay on the deck, catching his breath and processing the ordeal he had just survived. The once serene waters of Coral Cay had turned into a battlefield, and he had emerged victorious, albeit shaken. As the boat headed back to shore, Eli reflected on the day's events. The encounter had been terrifying, but it had also reinforced his love for the ocean and its inhabitants. He would continue to explore the underwater world, but with a heightened awareness and respect for the creatures that called it home. The barracuda's sharp teeth and lightning-fast movements would remain etched in his memory, a reminder of the ocean's power and the importance of vigilance in its depths. In the warm waters off the coast of Australia, near the fictional coastal town of Coral Bay, The sun was shining brightly on March 12, 2003. The ocean was a stunning shade of blue, clear and inviting. Coral Bay was known for its vibrant coral reefs and diverse marine life, attracting divers and snorkelers from all over the world. Sam Harrington, a 28-year-old freediver, was one of those drawn to the beauty of Coral Bay. An experienced diver, Sam loved the sense of freedom and tranquility he found beneath the waves. With him on this dive was his best friend and dive partner Jake Lawson, a seasoned diver in his mid-30s who had been diving with Sam for years. Their day began early, with the two friends preparing their gear at the small dive shop they frequented. Sam checked his equipment meticulously, ensuring everything was in perfect working order. He had a deep respect for the ocean and its unpredictable nature. Jake, with his easygoing demeanor, joked around but was equally diligent with his preparations. They were also joined by two other divers, Mia Thompson, a marine biology student researching coral reef ecosystems, and her friend, Eric Johnson, an underwater photographer capturing the beauty of the reefs for a magazine. The four of them made a diverse and lively group, each bringing their own unique skills and perspectives to the dive. After a quick breakfast and a final equipment check, they boarded a small boat and headed out to one of the lesser-known reef spots. The boat ride was filled with laughter and anticipation, with everyone eager to explore the underwater world. As they neared their destination, the water's clarity revealed the stunning coral formations below. Sam and Jake were the first to dive in, followed closely by Mia and Eric. The underwater scene was breathtaking. Schools of colorful fish darted among the corals, and the light filtered down from the surface, creating a magical, otherworldly glow. Sam felt a sense of peace as he glided through the water, every stroke bringing him closer to the vibrant marine life he loved so much. Australia's waters were home to many fascinating creatures, but one of the most intriguing and dangerous was the blue-ringed octopus. Though small, its bright blue rings warned of its potent venom, which could cause paralysis and even death. These octopuses were a rare sight, and divers often considered it a lucky encounter to see one, if they kept a respectful distance. Sam had heard stories about the blue-ringed octopus, but had never seen one in person. As he explored the reef, he remained vigilant, scanning the corals and crevices for any signs of the elusive creature. Meanwhile, Jake and Eric were engrossed in their tasks, Jake helping Mia with her research, and Eric snapping photos of the stunning underwater landscape. The dive continued peacefully, the group moving in harmony with the ocean's gentle currents. Sam's curiosity led him to a particularly vibrant section of the reef, teeming with life. He marveled at the intricate coral formations and the variety of fish swimming around him. It was a perfect day for diving, and he felt a profound connection to the ocean and its inhabitants. As Sam hovered near a cluster of corals, something caught his eye. A small, colorful creature with bright blue rings slowly emerged from a crevice. His heart skipped a beat as he realized he was looking at a blue-ringed octopus. Fascinated, Sam moved closer to get a better look, careful not to disturb the delicate creature. The octopus, seemingly unaware of Sam's presence, moved gracefully among the corals. Its bright blue rings pulsed with color, a mesmerizing sight. Sam, captivated by the beauty of the tiny creature, inched closer, wanting to capture the moment in his mind forever. Suddenly, the octopus turned and lunged at Sam. He felt a sharp sting on his hand, followed by an intense burning sensation. The blue-ringed octopus's bite was quick, its venom delivering a potentially lethal dose of neurotoxin. Panic set in as Sam realized what had happened. His serene dive had turned into a nightmare. The venom began to take effect almost immediately, and Sam felt a tingling sensation spreading from his hand. His muscles started to weaken, and he knew he had to get to the surface quickly. Fighting the growing paralysis, Sam kicked hard, propelling himself upward. Jake noticed the commotion and saw Sam struggling. Realizing something was wrong, he swam over as fast as he could. Sam's movements were becoming more erratic, his body not responding as it should. Jake grabbed Sam and began to tow him to the surface, his heart pounding with fear. Mia and Eric, alerted by Jake's urgency, followed them to the surface. As they broke through the water, Jake shouted for help, his voice filled with desperation. The boat captain, John, had seen the situation unfolding and was already moving the boat closer to the divers. Sam's breathing was becoming labored, and he struggled to stay conscious. The venom was working its way through his system, causing his muscles to seize and his vision to blur. Jake and John pulled him onto the boat, laying him flat and trying to keep him calm. Mia, who had some medical training, quickly assessed the situation. She knew there was no antivenom for a blue-ringed octopus bite, and that they had to keep Sam's airway open to prevent him from suffocating. She instructed Jake to help her keep Sam's head stable and his airways clear while John radioed for emergency assistance. The minutes felt like hours as they raced back to shore. Sam's condition was deteriorating rapidly, and he was slipping in and out of consciousness. His friends worked frantically to keep him breathing, their fear and determination evident in their actions. On the beach, an ambulance awaited their arrival. Paramedics quickly took over, administering oxygen and preparing to transport Sam to the nearest hospital. The severity of the situation was clear, and every second counted in getting him the medical care he needed. As the ambulance sped away, Jake, Mia, and Eric were left to process what had just happened. Their day of adventure had turned into a life-and-death struggle, highlighting the unpredictable and dangerous nature of the ocean's creatures. On a sunny afternoon in June 2001, Lisa Jennings arrived at Kahuna Cove, a secluded beach in Hawaii. Known for its pristine waters and soft sands, Kahuna Cove was a hidden gem on the island of Oahu. Lisa, a 300-pound woman with an adventurous spirit, had traveled to Hawaii to escape the routine of her daily life and to indulge in the island's beauty. She loved exploring new places, and this beach promised the peace and solitude she craved. Lisa spent the morning exploring the area, taking in the sights and sounds of the tropical paradise. She marveled at the colorful coral reefs visible from the shore and watched as schools of fish darted through the crystal-clear water. The beach was relatively empty, with only a few other vacationers scattered along the shoreline. Lisa had always been fascinated by marine life, and Hawaii's waters were home to some of the most magnificent creatures in the ocean. The great white shark, a powerful predator, was among the many species that inhabited these waters. Though rare, sightings of these formidable creatures were not unheard of in the deeper parts of the ocean surrounding the islands. Lisa's adventurous spirit led her to don her snorkeling gear and venture into the inviting waters. She floated on the surface, marveling at the underwater world beneath her. She felt at peace, the gentle waves lulling her into a state of relaxation. As she swam further from the shore, the tranquility of the moment made her feel alive and free. Unbeknownst to Lisa, a great white shark had been lurking in the deeper waters nearby. These sharks, known for their incredible power and sharp senses, were always on the lookout for prey. Their presence in Hawaiian waters was a reminder of the ocean's raw, untamed nature. Lisa swam gracefully, unaware of the danger that was silently approaching. The shark, mistaking her for a seal or other prey, began to close in on her. It was a situation no one could have anticipated, and Lisa was blissfully ignorant of the peril lurking beneath the waves. Nearby, a group of beachgoers enjoyed their day, completely unaware of the unfolding drama in the water. Among them were Mark Roberts, an experienced surfer, and his girlfriend, Emily Sanders, who had been sunbathing on the beach. They had come to Kahuna Cove for its serene atmosphere, hoping to escape the more crowded tourist spots. Lisa continued to swim, taking in the beauty of her surroundings. She was far enough from the shore that the sounds of the beach were distant and muffled. It was just her and the ocean, a moment of pure connection with nature. Without warning, Lisa felt a powerful jolt from below. The force of the impact knocked the breath out of her and sent a shock of pain through her body. Panic set in as she realized she was being attacked by a great white shark. The creature's powerful jaws had clamped down on her leg, and she could feel the sharp teeth tearing into her flesh. The water around her turned red with blood as the shark began to thrash, dragging Lisa under the surface. She struggled to free herself, her mind racing with fear and desperation. The shark's grip was relentless, and Lisa knew she had to fight with everything she had to survive. On the beach, Mark and Emily heard Lisa's screams. They saw the commotion in the water and realized what was happening. Without hesitation, Mark grabbed his surfboard and rushed into the ocean, calling for help as he went. Emily followed, grabbing a paddle from a nearby kayak. As Mark paddled furiously towards Lisa, he could see the shark's dorsal fins slicing through the water. The sight sent a chill down his spine, but he pushed forward, determined to help. Reaching Lisa, he swung his surfboard at the shark, trying to distract it and force it to release its grip. The shark's powerful body thrashed in response, making the water churn violently. Emily arrived moments later, using the paddle to strike at the shark. The combined efforts of Mark and Emily began to take effect, and the shark loosened its grip on Lisa. Blood flowed freely from her wounds, and she was barely conscious from the pain and blood loss. The shark, sensing that the fight was not worth the effort, finally released Lisa and disappeared into the depths. Mark and Emily worked quickly to pull Lisa onto the surfboard, using it as a makeshift stretcher. They paddled back to shore as fast as they could, knowing that every second counted. On the beach, other vacationers had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Among them was Dr. Paul Harris, a retired emergency room physician who had been enjoying a quiet day by the water. Seeing Lisa's condition, he immediately took charge, instructing others to call for an ambulance and to bring towels to apply pressure to her wounds. Lisa's leg was badly mauled, with deep gashes exposing muscle and bone. Dr. Harris did his best to stabilize her, using his knowledge and the limited resources at hand. The beachgoers formed a human chain to help carry Lisa to the parking lot, where they waited anxiously for the paramedics to arrive. Finally, the sound of sirens pierced the air, and the paramedics arrived. They worked swiftly to stabilize Lisa, loading her onto a stretcher and into the ambulance. As they sped away towards the nearest hospital, those who had witnessed the attack were left to process what they had just seen. The terrifying ordeal was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the ocean's depths. Lisa's adventurous spirit had led her to a near-fatal encounter with one of nature's most powerful predators. The bravery of Mark, Emily, and the others who rushed to her aid showcased the best of human nature in the face of a life-threatening crisis. During the summer of 2005, Jake Anderson moved to his favorite underwater wonderland, the fine kelp forests of Monterey, California. The 32-year-old marine biologist had spent hundreds of hours studying the vast life of the sea, but had never seen one of the most elusive and captivating creatures of the deep, the giant Pacific octopus. As Jake drifted down into the thick kelp canopy, his mind was racing about how he would document this complex ecosystem. He had heard rumors of enormous octopuses hovering in the dark, although he hadn't seen one with his naked eyes. Then, as he swam through an exceptionally thick patch of kelp, he felt a sudden sharp tug on his ankle. Instinctively, Jake looked down to see a giant tentacle wrapped around his leg, pulling him deeper into the forest. His heart began racing as he realized he was in the grip of a mighty octopus. In only moments, the 8 strong limbs of the creature wrapped around his leg, and Jake could feel a beak, for tearing open the shells of crabs and clams close to his flesh. Panic set in as he struggled to free himself. He shook his leg, trying to break the creature's grip, but the octopus held tight. Jake knew he had to think fast. He was running out of oxygen. Jake went for his dive knife, but every move was challenging in the thick kelp forest. As the octopus pulled him deeper, Jake thought quickly about escaping this difficult situation. He had never fathomed a time when his fascination with the marine world would have him in such immediate danger. Fueled with adrenaline, the determination to survive burned, but the strength in those octopus arms was immense. His hand struck a large boulder on the sea floor, which he clutched firmly and swung against the octopus's head. The blow connected with a dull thud, and for just a second the octopus broke its hold. Jake used that second to kick his leg free, but then the octopus regained its senses and came at him once again. Knowing he was running out of time, Jake desperately swam toward the surface, his strokes retarded by the heavy kelp. He was being pursued by the octopus with long tentacles reaching out, trying to snare back its prey. Jake could feel the suction cups of the creature rake across his skin, and he knew he needed to make one last push to get away. As he broke through the surface, Jake gasped for air, his lungs on fire from the effort. He looked around until he saw the octopus's tentacles slipping beneath the waves, an outstanding example of tenacity and vigor in a creature. Shaken by the experience, he swam back toward shore with all possible speed, his mind reeling from the narrow escape from death. Once ashore, Jake related this harrowing incident to his colleagues at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, where he worked as a marine biologist. The story spread all around the public imagination, captivated by the account of that elusive nature, the giant Pacific octopus. The experience haunted him. He had always known how heavy and unpredictable the ocean's punch could be. But this encounter had brought him face to face with a giant Pacific octopus. He finally decided to continue his research to learn more about such wonderful creatures and their location in the balance of these sensitive ecosystems of the kelp forests. Jake's brush with the giant Pacific octopus had left an indelible mark on his psyche. As he lay in bed that night, the memory of the creature's tentacles coiling around his leg replaying vividly in his mind, he couldn't help but feel a profound sense of respect and wonder. The ocean, it seemed, was filled with wonders yet to be discovered, and Jake knew that this harrowing encounter would forever shape his future as a marine biologist. With a renewed passion and determination, he resolved to continue his research, determined to unravel the mysteries of the giant Pacific octopus and the remarkable ecosystem it called home. For Jake, the kelp forests of Monterey would forever hold a special and slightly ominous place in his heart. In November 1995, Maria Santos, a 38-year-old woman from Johannesburg, South Africa, was on a much-anticipated vacation along the coast of Gansbaai, a small fishing town known for its stunning beaches and, more ominously, its frequent sightings of great white sharks. Despite being inexperienced in the sport, Maria had always dreamed of surfing, and this trip was her opportunity to finally take on the waves. The cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean were notorious for their unpredictable currents and marine life, but Maria was eager to experience the thrill of the ocean. Gansbaai, often called the Great White Shark Capital of the world, was both a paradise and a danger zone for surfers. The waters were home to a large population of seals, the primary prey of great white sharks. The sharks often hunted in the area, making it a hotspot for shark enthusiasts and a perilous playground for surfers. Signs warning of the dangers were posted along the beach, but Maria, like many others, was determined not to let fear keep her from enjoying her vacation. On the morning of November 15th, Maria joined a group of local surfers who had invited her to experience the waves at a popular surf spot known as Danger Point. The name itself hinted at the risks involved, but Maria, buoyed by the excitement of the day and the encouragement of her new friends, paddled out with them. The sky was overcast and the waves were choppy, but for Maria, it was a perfect day to surf. Maria's enthusiasm was evident as she paddled out into the water, her surfboard bobbing in the swell. The other surfers, more experienced and familiar with the area, kept a close eye on her, offering tips and helping her navigate the waves. Maria was a large woman weighing over 200 pounds, and her size made her a more prominent figure on the water. She knew she was a novice, but she was determined to make the most of her time in the ocean. As the morning wore on, the surfers began to spread out, each seeking their own perfect wave. Maria stayed closer to the group, waiting for her chance to catch a wave that wasn't too intimidating. The water was colder than she had anticipated, but her excitement kept her warm. She paddled out a little further, eager to finally stand up on her board and ride a wave back to shore. But beneath the surface, something else was lurking. Unbeknownst to Maria, a massive great white shark had been cruising the deeper waters off Danger Point. The shark, nearly 18 feet long, was an apex predator, its senses finely tuned to detect the movements of prey. In the cold, murky waters, the shark could detect even the smallest vibrations, and the silhouette of Maria on her surfboard must have appeared like a seal, a perfect target for a hungry predator. Maria was completely unaware of the danger. She was focused on the water ahead, her heart racing as she anticipated her first big wave. The other surfers were a little distance away, giving her space to try and catch a wave on her own. For a moment, everything seemed perfect, a dream finally coming true. Suddenly, without warning, the great white shark made its move. In a flash, the shark surged from the depths, its powerful body slicing through the water with terrifying speed. Before Maria could react, the shark's massive jaws clamped down on her surfboard and her leg in a single, crushing bite. The impact was so violent that Maria was ripped from her board and pulled underwater. Panic set in as Maria struggled to comprehend what was happening. The freezing water rushed over her as the shark thrashed violently, its grip on her leg unyielding. The pain was immediate and excruciating, but her instinct to survive kicked in. She tried to free herself, kicking and flailing, but the shark's power was overwhelming. The other surfers, hearing the commotion, turned to see Maria's surfboard being dragged under, the water around it churning and turning red. Realizing what was happening, they began to paddle frantically towards her, shouting in desperation, but the distance was too great. The great white, sensing its prey's struggle, shook its massive head, trying to tear its victim free. Maria's vision blurred as she was pulled deeper into the ocean. The shark's thrashing made it impossible for her to orient herself, and the cold water sapped her strength. Every instinct in her body told her to fight, but the shark was relentless, its jaws clamped down with crushing force. The world around her became a blur of pain and fear, the water closing in as she was dragged further into the depths. Desperate, Maria reached out with her hands, trying to grab anything that could help her. She felt the smooth surface of her surfboard, now broken and useless as the shark continued its attack. Her mind raced, searching for a way to escape, but the shark's strength was overwhelming. The predator was in control, and Maria's chances of survival were slipping away with every passing second. The other surfers, despite their frantic efforts, were powerless to help. They could only watch in horror as the ocean turned red, the struggle playing out before them like a nightmare. One of the surfers managed to reach the spot where Maria had been, but by then it was too late. All that remained was the broken surfboard, floating in the bloodied water. The great white shark, satisfied with its kill, disappeared into the deep, leaving behind nothing but silence and shock. The surfers, numb with disbelief, began searching the water, hoping against hope to find some sign of Maria. But she was gone, taken by the ocean's top predator in a brutal display of nature's power. The attack sent shockwaves through the surfing community and the town of Gansby. Word spread quickly, and within hours the beach was closed, with authorities issuing warnings about the dangers of shark-infested waters. Maria's death was a tragic reminder of the risks that came with venturing into the ocean, especially in areas known for their shark populations. For those who witnessed the attack, the image of the great white shark's violent strike and the helplessness they felt would haunt them forever. The ocean, so often seen as a place of beauty and adventure, had revealed its darker side, claiming the life of a woman who had simply wanted to experience the thrill of surfing. In August 2005, the sun shone brightly over the crystal-clear waters of the Exuma Cays in the Bahamas. This group of islands, known for their vibrant coral reefs and turquoise waters, was a paradise for tourists seeking adventure beneath the waves. Among the visitors that day was 18-year-old Alex Thompson, a recent high school graduate from Boston, who was on a much-anticipated vacation with his family. The trip to the Bahamas was a gift from his parents, celebrating his upcoming journey to college. Alex had always loved the ocean, and the chance to explore one of the world's most beautiful marine environments was a dream come true. That morning, Alex and his family boarded a boat for a guided snorkeling tour around the coral reefs. The guide, a local Bahamian named Terrence, was an experienced diver who knew the waters like the back of his hand. He had led countless tours and was familiar with the marine life that called the reefs home, including the harmless reef sharks that often swam nearby. Terrence assured the group that these sharks posed no threat to snorkelers, and the group eagerly prepared for their adventure. The boat ride to the snorkeling site was a thrill in itself. The water was so clear that Alex could see the coral formations and schools of fish passing beneath the boat. The islands of Exuma were like jewels scattered across the ocean, their white sand beaches contrasting sharply with the deep blue sea. As the boat anchored near a particularly vibrant reef, the group prepared to enter the water. They donned their snorkeling gear, checked their fins, and slid into the warm embrace of the Caribbean Sea. The underwater world was breathtaking. The coral was alive with color, vivid reds, oranges, and purples, and teeming with life. Schools of fish darted around the group, their scales shimmering in the sunlight that filtered down through the water. Alex was in awe, his heart racing with excitement as he floated above the reef, watching the marine life go about its day. He felt a sense of peace and connection to the ocean that he had never experienced before. As the group swam further from the boat, they marveled at the beauty of the reef, snapping photos with their underwater cameras and pointing out the different species of fish. Terrence led the way, guiding them toward a deeper part of the reef where the coral formations were more pronounced. The water was calm and the group felt completely at ease as they explored the vibrant ecosystem below. But the tranquility of the day was about to be shattered. Unbeknownst to the group, a school of fish had been disturbed nearby, attracting the attention of several reef sharks. These sleek predators, though usually uninterested in humans, were drawn by the commotion. More concerning, however, was the presence of two bull sharks, larger and far more aggressive than the reef sharks. Bull sharks are known for their unpredictable nature and are considered one of the most dangerous shark species. The scent of fish and the activity around the reef had brought them in closer, and they were now circling the group, their interest piqued. The water, once so clear and inviting, suddenly felt different. Alex noticed the change first, the way the fish around him seemed to scatter, the subtle shift in the water's energy. He turned to see Terrence, who had stopped swimming and was scanning the area with a look of concern. Before Alex could process what was happening, a large shadow passed beneath him, and his heart leaped into his throat. A bull shark, nearly 10 feet long, had emerged from the depths, its powerful body gliding through the water with silent menace. The shark circled the group, joined by another of its kind, as the smaller reef sharks followed in their wake. The once peaceful snorkeling trip had turned into a scene of impending danger. Terrence signaled for the group to stay close and remain calm, but the situation quickly escalated. One of the bull sharks, sensing an opportunity, charged at Alex, its muscular body propelling it forward with terrifying speed. The impact was sudden and brutal, the shark's snout ramming into Alex's side and knocking the snorkel from his mouth. The force of the hit sent him spiraling into the water, disoriented and panicked. As Alex struggled to regain his bearings, he felt a sharp pain in his leg. A small cut, likely from a piece of coral, had opened up, and the scent of blood was now in the water. The sharks, already agitated, became frenzied. The reef sharks snapped at the water around Alex while the bull sharks circled closer. Their eyes locked on him as if they had found easy prey. Fear surged through Alex as he tried to swim back to the group, but the sharks were relentless. They swarmed around him, their bodies moving with a deadly grace. Alex kicked out with his fins, using them to push the sharks away, but they kept coming. The water churned as the predators closed in, and Alex could see the flash of teeth as one of the reef sharks snapped at his arm, narrowly missing him. Terrence and the other snorkelers formed a tight circle, their backs to each other as they tried to fend off the sharks. They used their snorkels and flippers to create a barrier, hitting the water to keep the predators at bay. But the bull sharks were persistent, their aggression fueled by the scent of blood and the chaos in the water. The situation was dire, and Alex knew that their only hope was to reach the safety of the boat. Terrence, recognizing the danger, signaled for everyone to move as one toward the boat. The group swam together, staying close, their movements slow and deliberate to avoid further provoking the sharks. The sharks continued to circle, but the group's unity and determination kept them from making another attack. With every stroke, the boat grew closer, but the sharks followed, unwilling to let their prey escape so easily. The adrenaline in Alex's veins pushed him forward despite the pain in his leg and the terror gripping his heart. Finally, they reached the boat, and the crew pulled them aboard, their faces pale with fear and relief. As the last person was pulled from the water, the sharks made one final pass, circling the boat before disappearing into the depths. The group collapsed on the deck, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling from the ordeal. Alex looked down at his leg, the small cut now an angry red, but he was alive. The encounter had left him shaken, a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictable and dangerous side. In the summer of 2001, Tom Lawson, a seasoned fisherman in his mid-40s, set out for a fishing trip in the Gulf of Mexico. He was an experienced angler, known among his friends for his patience and skill. Tom had been fishing the Gulf's waters for years, but this trip was special. He had planned it for months, hoping to reel in something extraordinary. The Gulf of Mexico, with its warm waters and abundant marine life, was the perfect place to find the catch of a lifetime. Tom's destination was a remote spot about 20 miles off the coast of Florida, known among locals as the Deep. This area was famous for its large fish, including the elusive giant grouper. Groupers in the Gulf could grow to enormous sizes, some weighing over 800 pounds. These fish were a challenge to catch, and even more challenging to bring to the surface, but that was exactly what Tom was looking for. On the morning of August 12th, Tom and his close friend Jim boarded their small fishing boat and set out into the Gulf. The air was warm and the sea was calm as they navigated the familiar waters. Both men were in high spirits, sharing stories and laughing as they anticipated the day ahead. The Gulf was beautiful that day, and everything seemed to be in their favor. After a few hours of cruising, they arrived at the deep. Tom anchored the boat, and the men began preparing their gear. Tom's setup was impressive, a heavy-duty rod and reel designed to handle the immense weight and power of the Gulf's largest fish. He baited his hook with a large chunk of mackerel, hoping it would attract something big. The wait was long, but Tom didn't mind. He had fished these waters many times and knew that patience was the key to success. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the two men relaxed, sipping on cold drinks and talking about everything from fishing tales to family life. The calm rhythm of the ocean and the anticipation of the unknown made the time pass quickly. Suddenly, Tom felt a strong tug on his line. His heart skipped a beat as he gripped the rod and began reeling in. Whatever was on the other end was massive. The line strained under the weight, and Tom's muscles tensed as he fought to keep the rod steady. Jim, noticing the struggle, quickly moved to help, but Tom waved him off. This was his fight, and he wanted to see it through. The battle was intense. The fish on the line was powerful, pulling with such force that Tom had to plant his feet firmly on the deck to avoid being dragged overboard. He could feel every movement of the creature below, each tug and surge sending vibrations up the line and through his body. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he focused all his energy on reeling in the catch. As the minutes passed, Tom began to gain the upper hand. Slowly but surely, he reeled the fish closer to the surface. His excitement grew as he caught glimpses of the enormous shadow moving beneath the water. It was a grouper, a giant, much larger than anything he had ever seen before. The sight of it filled him with both awe and a sense of impending challenge. The fish was nearly at the surface, and Tom knew the hardest part was yet to come. As the giant grouper neared the boat, it suddenly changed its behavior. The fish, realizing it was close to the surface, became agitated. It thrashed violently, sending waves splashing against the side of the boat. Tom tightened his grip on the rod, bracing himself for the struggle to come. The grouper's massive body twisted and turned, its powerful tail churning the water into a frothy mess. Without warning, the grouper made a powerful lunge towards the boat. The sudden movement caught Tom off guard, nearly pulling him off his feet. The fish, driven by a primal instinct to survive, surged toward Tom with terrifying force. The line, now taut as a bowstring, hummed under the strain as the fish closed the distance. The next moment was a blur. The grouper, in a desperate attempt to free itself, slammed into the side of the boat, knocking Tom off balance. He stumbled, his legs giving way as the fish made a final, violent thrust. Tom was yanked forward, and before he could react, he was partially dragged over the side of the boat. His leg dangled in the water, and in an instant, the grouper clamped down with its powerful jaws. Pain shot through Tom's leg as the grouper's teeth sank into his flesh. The shock of the attack left him momentarily paralyzed, his mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. The fish, now more desperate than ever, began to thrash wildly, pulling Tom further over the side. He could feel the immense power of the grouper as it tried to drag him into the water, where it would have the advantage. Tom's survival instincts kicked in. He knew that if he was pulled into the water, his chances of survival would be slim. With his free hand, he reached for the fishing knife strapped to his belt. His fingers fumbled with the handle, slick with sweat and seawater, but he managed to grip it tightly. With a swift motion, he drove the knife into the grouper's side. The fish reacted immediately, releasing Tom's leg as it recoiled in pain. Blood mixed with the seawater, clouding the water around them. But the grouper was not done yet. It thrashed even more violently, sending shockwaves through the water and the boat. Tom could feel the boat rocking beneath him, the force of the fish nearly tipping it over. Jim, who had been watching the ordeal with mounting horror, rushed to help. He grabbed Tom by the arms, pulling him back onto the boat with all his strength. Tom, his leg bleeding profusely, clung to the side of the boat, his heart pounding in his chest. The grouper, wounded but not defeated, made one last attempt to escape. It surged away from the boat, the line snapping under the strain. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the sound of Tom's heavy breathing. The water around the boat was still, the giant grouper gone, leaving behind only a trail of blood and the shattered remnants of the line. Tom lay on the deck, his leg throbbing with pain, but relief washed over him. He had survived the encounter, but just barely. Jim quickly grabbed a first aid kit and began tending to Tom's wounds. The deep gashes in his leg were serious, but they had avoided the worst. Tom winced as Jim cleaned the wounds, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The realization of what had just happened began to sink in. The sheer power of the giant grouper, the struggle for survival, and the narrow escape. In November 1998, the small village of Asuom, nestled deep in the heart of Ghana, was enduring the peak of the dry season. The land was parched. The once lush greenery is now a faded memory. The sun beat down mercilessly each day, and the villagers sought relief wherever they could find it. For many, this meant visiting the local waterhole, a source of life and refreshment in an otherwise unforgiving landscape. The waterhole, located just outside the village, had always been a gathering place for the community. It was where children learned to swim, women washed clothes, and men cooled off after a long day's work. The water was shallow near the edges but grew deeper towards the center, where the older boys often dared each other to dive. Though the villagers knew the risks of swimming in natural bodies of water in Africa, they felt safe at this particular spot. The waterhole had been a haven for generations, and no one could recall a time when anything dangerous had happened there. Kofi Osei, a young man of 18, was among those who frequently visited the waterhole. Tall and strong, with a bright future ahead of him, Kofi was well liked in the village. He was known for his kindness and his love of swimming. On this day, Kofi had finished his chores early and decided to head to the waterhole for a swim. The air was heavy with heat, and the thought of cool water was irresistible. As he walked towards the waterhole, he passed by friends and neighbors who greeted him warmly. It was a typical day in Asuom. Children played in the dusty streets, women gathered under the shade of trees, and men discussed the upcoming harvest season. There was a sense of peace and normalcy that belied the lurking danger. The waterhole itself was a picture of serenity. The surface of the water shimmered under the bright sun, reflecting the clear blue sky above. The trees surrounding the waterhole provided some shade, casting dappled shadows on the water. Birds chirped from the branches, and the occasional splash could be heard as fish broke the surface. To anyone watching, it seemed like a perfect day. But beneath the calm surface, hidden in the murky depths, danger lay in wait. The dry season had forced many animals to seek out new water sources, and a large Nile crocodile had recently made the waterhole its home. The villagers were unaware of the crocodile's presence, as it remained hidden in the deeper parts of the waterhole, biding its time. Nile crocodiles are known for their patience and stealth, often lying in wait for hours, even days, before striking with lethal force. Kofi reached the waterhole and quickly stripped down to his shorts. He dipped his toes into the water, relishing the coolness against his skin. With a smile, he waded in, feeling the tension of the day melt away. He swam out towards the center where the water was deepest, unaware of the predator that lurked below. The water was cool and inviting, and Kofi felt completely at ease. As he floated on his back, looking up at the sky, Kofi couldn't have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. Without warning, the surface of the water erupted in a violent splash. The crocodile, having waited for the perfect moment, launched itself at Kofi with terrifying speed. Its powerful jaws clamped down on his midsection, the force of the bite knocking the air out of his lungs and sending shockwaves of pain through his body. The attack was so sudden and brutal that Kofi didn't even have time to scream before he was pulled under the water. The crocodile's teeth, sharp and strong, dug deep into Kofi's flesh, and the predator began to drag him toward the bottom of the waterhole. The water around them churned as Kofi struggled desperately, his instincts kicking in as he fought for his life. He kicked and punched at the crocodile, trying to free himself from its vice-like grip, but the animal was relentless. It had locked onto its prey, and there was no escape. As Kofi thrashed in the water, the crocodile performed its infamous death roll, twisting its massive body with incredible force. The roll was designed to disorient and subdue its prey, and it worked to devastating effect. Kofi's body was whipped around, and the force of the roll caused him to lose all sense of direction. The pain was overwhelming, and his lungs burned as he fought to hold his breath. The world around him became a blur of dark water and pain. On the shore, a group of villagers had heard the commotion and rushed to the waterhole. They watched in horror as the water turned red with blood, the surface churning as Kofi and the crocodile struggled beneath. Some of the men grabbed sticks and rocks, desperate to help, but they were too far away to intervene. The crocodile was too strong and too determined, and Kofi's chances of survival were slipping away with each passing second. The villagers shouted and waved their arms, hoping to scare the crocodile away, but the predator was focused solely on its prey. It continued to drag Kofi deeper into the water, the struggle becoming more frantic as the young man's strength began to fade. The waterhole, once a place of peace and safety, had become a scene of unimaginable horror. As the crocodile pulled Kofi under for the final time, the water grew still. The villagers stood on the shore, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. The water, now stained with blood, lapped gently against the shore as if nothing had happened. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft cries of the women who had come to see what had happened. Kofi was gone, taken by the predator that had made the waterhole its hunting ground. The village of Asuom would never be the same. The incident served as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk even in the most familiar and seemingly safe places. The waterhole, once a symbol of life and community, had become a place of fear and loss. In the days that followed, the villagers mourned the loss of Kofi, their hearts heavy with grief. They vowed to be more cautious and to never take the safety of their surroundings for granted again. The waterhole, once the center of village life, was now a place of sorrow, a stark reminder of the brutal reality of life in the wild. In the summer of 2003, Kate Thompson, a 25-year-old marine biology student from the United States, was living her dream. She had traveled to the Caribbean, specifically to the beautiful island of St. Lucia, to participate in a research expedition focused on the vibrant coral reefs that surrounded the island. The reefs were a dazzling array of colors and life, teeming with species of fish, corals, and other marine organisms. For Kate, this trip was more than just a research opportunity. It was an adventure, a chance to explore one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. On a bright July morning, Kate and her dive partner Laura prepared for a day of diving at a well-known reef called Anse Chastanet. The area was famous for its stunning underwater landscapes and the variety of marine life that could be found there. The waters around St. Lucia were warm and clear, making it a popular destination for divers from all over the world. But with its beauty came risks, as the Caribbean Sea was home to some of the ocean's most formidable predators. Kate and Laura had been diving together for several years, and they trusted each other completely. They had planned this dive carefully, ensuring that all their gear was in top condition. As they boarded the small dive boat that would take them to the reef, the excitement was palpable. The boat ride was short, and soon they were donning their wetsuits and checking their tanks. The dive site was just a short distance from shore, and as the boat anchored, they could see the reef below, its colors shimmering through the crystal-clear water. Kate was the first to enter the water, and the coolness of the ocean was a welcome contrast to the warm Caribbean sun. She adjusted her mask and regulator, then signaled to Laura before descending into the depths. The underwater world opened up before her, a kaleidoscope of movement and color. Schools of fish darted between the corals while sea fans swayed gently with the current. Kate was in her element, her heart filled with a sense of wonder and respect for the life that surrounded her. As they explored the reef, Kate and Laura communicated with hand signals, pointing out interesting species and formations. Kate was particularly interested in the large parrotfish that grazed on the coral, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the deep blues and greens of the ocean. The dive was going smoothly, and they were collecting valuable data for their research. But as they moved deeper along the reef, Kate noticed something unusual. A sleek silver shape glided through the water a short distance away. It was a barracuda, one of the fastest and most aggressive predators in the Caribbean. Known for their speed and razor-sharp teeth, barracudas are often feared by divers, not only for their predatory nature but also for their unpredictable behavior. Kate had encountered barracudas before, but this one was different. It was much larger and appeared to be watching her intently. The barracuda's presence made Kate uneasy, but she tried to remain calm. She knew that sudden movements could provoke an attack, so she continued to swim slowly, keeping the fish in her peripheral vision. The barracuda, however, seemed to be following her, drawn to the glint of her diving gear in the sunlight. The tension in the water was palpable, and Kate could feel her pulse quicken. She signaled to Laura, who had also noticed the barracuda, and they both began to move toward shallower water. But the barracuda was not going to let them go so easily. As Kate and Laura swam cautiously toward the safety of the shallower reef, the barracuda suddenly accelerated, closing the distance between them in a matter of seconds. Kate barely had time to react before the fish was upon her, its sharp teeth flashing in the sunlight. The attack was swift and brutal. The barracuda struck with terrifying speed, sinking its teeth into Kate's arm with a force that left her stunned. Pain shot through Kate's body as the barracuda's teeth tore into her flesh. The water around her turned red as blood began to cloud the crystal-clear water. The suddenness of the attack left her in shock, her mind racing as she tried to process what had just happened. The barracuda, its primal instincts triggered by the taste of blood, released her arm only to circle back for another attack. Kate knew she had to act quickly. Her training kicked in as she frantically kicked her legs, trying to distance herself from the predator. She signaled desperately to Laura, who was already swimming toward her eyes wide with fear. The barracuda, undeterred, circled back and charged again, this time aiming for Kate's leg. Kate managed to twist away just in time, but the fish's teeth grazed her thigh, leaving another painful wound. Despite the searing pain, Kate fought to remain calm. She kicked with all her strength, trying to fend off the relentless predator while signaling for help. Her vision blurred as the blood continued to flow from her wounds, but she knew she had to keep fighting. The barracuda, now frenzied by the scent of blood, made another pass. But this time, Kate used her remaining strength to punch at the fish, her fists connecting with its sleek, muscular body. The barracuda recoiled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected resistance. It hovered in the water, its dark eyes fixed on Kate as it assessed its next move. But before it could strike again, Laura reached Kate's side, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her toward the surface. The two women swam as fast as they could, their movements fueled by adrenaline and fear. The barracuda followed for a few more seconds, but then, as quickly as it had appeared, it turned and disappeared into the blue. Breaking through the surface of the water, Kate gasped for air, her body trembling with pain and shock. Laura, equally shaken, held onto her friend, keeping her afloat as they signaled frantically for the dive boat. The crew, having seen the commotion, sped toward them, their faces etched with concern. Within moments, they were pulled aboard and Kate collapsed on the deck, her arm and leg bleeding profusely. The crew quickly began administering first aid, applying pressure to Kate's wounds to stem the bleeding. Kate lay on the deck, her breathing ragged, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The vibrant, beautiful reef that she had been so eager to explore had turned into a scene of terror. The barracuda's attack had been sudden and savage, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface of the ocean. April 2003, Jake Thornton, a seasoned adventurer and outdoor enthusiast, set out on a solo kayaking trip along the rugged coastline of New Zealand's South Island. Jake had always been drawn to the sea, and the stretch of ocean near Kaikoura was one of his favorite places to paddle. The region was known for its stunning scenery, with towering cliffs, rocky outcrops, and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretching out to the horizon. On that particular day, the weather was perfect. The sky was clear, the sea was calm, and there was a slight breeze that made the conditions ideal for kayaking. Jake was an experienced kayaker, having spent years exploring various waterways across New Zealand and beyond. He was well prepared for the journey, equipped with all the necessary gear and a keen sense of adventure. That morning, he had launched his kayak from a small, secluded beach, eager to spend the day navigating the coastline, exploring hidden coves, and maybe even spotting some of the region's abundant marine life. The area was known for its dolphins, seals, and occasionally larger predators like orcas and sharks. But Jake wasn't concerned. He had been in these waters many times before and knew how to handle himself. As he paddled further out to sea, the tranquility of the open ocean enveloped him. The rhythmic sound of the paddle dipping into the water and the gentle swaying of the kayak was almost meditative. Jake relished the solitude, the feeling of being completely alone in such a vast and beautiful environment. He watched seabirds glide overhead and saw the occasional seal popping its head above the water, curious about the lone kayaker passing by. It was the kind of day that made all the effort of getting out of bed early worthwhile. Jake decided to paddle toward a small island a few miles off the coast. The island, a rocky outcrop surrounded by deep blue water, was one of his favorite spots. The journey there would take a couple of hours, but Jake was in no hurry. He savored the journey, enjoying the sense of freedom that came with being out on the water, far from the noise and stress of everyday life. As he approached the island, the water became slightly choppier, but it was nothing Jake couldn't handle. He had navigated through much rougher conditions before. The sun was high in the sky, and Jake considered taking a break on the island, maybe eating the lunch he had packed and enjoying the view before heading back to the mainland. But as he continued paddling, something in the water caught his eye. A dark shape moved beneath the surface, large and fast. Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he remained calm, knowing that many large fish and sea mammals lived in these waters. But then the shape moved closer, and Jake realized it was not just any sea creature. It was a bull shark, one of the most aggressive and unpredictable sharks in the ocean. Before Jake could fully comprehend the situation, the shark rammed into the side of his kayak with incredible force. The impact was so sudden and powerful that it knocked Jake into the water, flipping the kayak over and leaving him struggling to stay afloat. The cold water shocked his system, but there was no time to think. The shark was circling him, its dorsal fin cutting through the water like a knife, coming closer with each pass. Panic set in as Jake frantically tried to right his kayak, but the shark wasn't giving him a chance. It was clearly agitated, its behavior aggressive as it prepared to strike again. Jake grabbed onto the side of the kayak, trying to pull himself back on, but the shark came at him, its jaws snapping shut around his leg with terrifying force. The pain was immediate and excruciating. The shark's teeth dug deep into his flesh, and Jake could feel the power of the predator as it tried to pull him under. Blood poured from the wound, turning the water around him red. Jake fought back with everything he had, using his paddle to strike at the shark, desperate to free himself from its grip. He knew that if he went under, it would be over. The shark released his leg, but it wasn't done. It circled back, ramming the kayak again, trying to knock Jake off balance. The kayak was now listing dangerously, water filling the cockpit as the shark continued its assault. Jake managed to get one leg back into the kayak, but the shark struck again, its body slamming into the kayak with such force that it nearly capsized. The situation was dire, and Jake knew he had to stay calm if he wanted to survive. With sheer willpower, Jake continued to fend off the shark, using his paddle as a weapon to keep it at bay. Each time the shark came close, he struck out, hoping to deter it long enough to escape. His leg was throbbing with pain, the blood loss making him feel lightheaded, but he couldn't give up. He had to keep fighting. Then, in the distance, Jake saw a boat, a small fishing vessel heading in his direction. He waved his arms frantically, shouting for help, even as the shark made another pass. The boat's occupants saw the commotion and quickly changed course, speeding toward Jake. The sight of the boat gave him a surge of hope, but the shark wasn't done yet. As the boat approached, the shark made one final attempt to take Jake down, lunging at the kayak and grabbing hold of it with its powerful jaws. The kayak shook violently, and Jake nearly lost his grip, but he held on, striking the shark repeatedly until it finally let go. The boat arrived just in time, the crew pulling Jake aboard as the shark swam off, disappearing into the deep. Jake collapsed on the deck, his body shaking with pain and exhaustion. His leg was badly injured, and the blood loss had left him weak, but he was alive. The crew quickly tended to his wounds, applying pressure to stop the bleeding as they headed back to shore. The attack left Jake with severe injuries and a deep respect for the power of the ocean. The bull shark, one of the most feared predators in the sea, had nearly claimed another victim. As Jake lay on the deck staring up at the clear blue sky, he knew that he had come close to losing everything, but he had survived. and that was something to be grateful for. In early December 2005, Paul Fisher, a 34-year-old adventure enthusiast from Perth, Australia, set out for a solo kayaking trip along the rugged coastline of Western Australia. Known for its stunning landscapes and diverse marine life, the area around Shark Bay was a favorite spot for thrill-seekers like Paul. The pristine waters were home to dolphins, turtles, and of course the occasional shark. Paul had kayaked these waters many times before, confident in his skills and knowledge of the ocean. But on this day he would encounter something far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. The morning began like any other on the western coast, bright and sunny, with a slight breeze ruffling the surface of the water. Paul launched his kayak from a secluded beach, the sand warm under his feet as he pushed off into the gentle waves. He was in high spirits, eager to explore the coastal caves and rocky outcrops that dotted the shoreline. The ocean was calm, and Paul paddled effortlessly, enjoying the solitude and the rhythmic sound of his paddle cutting through the water. As he ventured further from shore, the familiar landscape began to change. The water deepened, taking on a darker hue, and the gentle waves became more unpredictable. But Paul, an experienced kayaker, wasn't concerned. He knew these waters well, or so he thought. The sun climbed higher in the sky as he continued paddling, the coastline now a distant line on the horizon. Paul felt a sense of freedom out here in the open ocean, away from the noise and busyness of everyday life. About an hour into his journey, Paul decided to take a break. He stopped paddling, letting the kayak drift as he took a moment to appreciate the vastness of the ocean. The water around him was eerily still, the only sound the distant cry of a seabird. But as he sat there, something caught his attention, a dark shadow moving beneath the surface of the water. At first, Paul thought it might be a large fish or even a dolphin, but as the shape drew closer, he realized with a jolt of fear that it was something much more dangerous. Bull sharks were notorious in these waters, known for their aggressive nature and tendency to swim in both salt and fresh water. They were one of the few shark species that could thrive in rivers and estuaries, as well as the open ocean, making them particularly dangerous. Paul had heard stories of bull sharks attacking swimmers and surfers, but he had never imagined he would encounter one so far out at sea. The shark began to circle the kayak, its movement slow and deliberate. Paul's heart raced as he watched the massive creature glide through the water, its dorsal fin cutting the surface like a knife. The kayak, which had felt so stable moments ago, now seemed flimsy and vulnerable. Paul knew he had to stay calm, but the sight of the shark was enough to send a chill down his spine. The bull shark circled once more, then twice, before bumping the kayak with a force that nearly knocked Paul off balance. The impact sent a shockwave through the small vessel, and Paul instinctively grabbed the sides, trying to steady himself. The shark bumped the kayak again, this time with more force as if testing its strength. Paul realized with a sinking feeling that the shark was not just curious, it was hungry. Before Paul could react, the bull shark launched a full attack. With a powerful surge, the shark rammed the kayak, flipping it over in one swift motion. Paul was thrown into the water, the cold ocean engulfing him as he struggled to right himself. Panic set in as he realized his worst fear had come true. He was in the water, with an aggressive shark circling nearby. The shark wasted no time. As Paul surfaced, gasping for air, the shark lunged at him, its powerful jaws clamping down on his leg. The pain was immediate and intense, radiating up his leg as the shark's teeth tore into his flesh. Paul screamed in agony, his voice lost in the vastness of the ocean. The shark began to drag him under, its grip unyielding as it pulled him deeper into the water. Desperation and fear fueled Paul's fight for survival. He kicked wildly with his free leg, aiming for the shark's snout, the only vulnerable part of the predator. The shark thrashed in response, its powerful body twisting in the water as it tried to subdue its prey. Paul could feel his strength waning, the cold water sapping his energy as the shark pulled him further down. The surface seemed impossibly far away, and with every passing second his chances of survival grew slimmer. But Paul refused to give up. Summoning the last of his strength, he reached down and jabbed his fingers into the shark's eyes. The shark recoiled in pain, loosening its grip just enough for Paul to break free. Blood clouded the water around him, but he forced himself to swim upward, each stroke a battle against the darkness closing in around him. The need for air drove him forward, and the instinct to survive pushed him beyond his limits. Breaking through the surface, Paul gasped for breath, his lungs burning as he gulped down air. The shark, momentarily disoriented, circled below, but it seemed to lose interest in its injured prey. Paul clung to the overturned kayak, his body trembling from the cold and the shock of the attack. He was bleeding heavily, his leg a searing mass of pain, but he was alive. A boat drawn by the commotion sped toward him. The crew, horrified by the sight of the bloodied man clinging to the kayak, quickly pulled him aboard. Paul collapsed on the deck, his body weak and his mind reeling from the ordeal. The boat raced back to shore, but Paul barely registered the journey. His thoughts were consumed by the attack, the sight of the shark, and the realization that he had come within moments of death. The bull shark, one of the ocean's most feared predators, had left Paul with life-threatening injuries and a deep-seated fear of the sea. The ocean, once a place of adventure and freedom, had shown its darker side, and Paul knew he would never view it the same way again. In the scorching summer of 2007, the Evans family decided to spend a relaxing day at a remote river in northern Australia. Known for its wild beauty and diverse wildlife, the area was a favorite retreat for locals. The river, winding through dense bushland, was surrounded by towering eucalyptus trees and thick undergrowth, offering a serene escape from the bustling city life. For Mark and Jane Evans, it was the perfect place to take their children, 15-year-old Jamie and his younger sister Lily, for a day of swimming and picnicking. The day started like any other. The sun was high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The river's cool, clear water beckoned, and the family quickly set up their picnic area under the shade of a large tree. Jamie and Lily were eager to jump into the water, and after a quick reminder from their father to stay close to the shore, they waded in. The river was calm, and the children's laughter echoed through the trees as they splashed around near the bank. Mark, a seasoned outdoorsman, kept a watchful eye on his children, especially aware of the potential dangers that lurked in the waters of northern Australia. Saltwater crocodiles, or salties as they were commonly known, were a constant threat in this region. These apex predators were known for their stealth, power, and ability to remain completely still just beneath the water's surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Despite their fearsome reputation, many locals believed that with caution, the risks could be managed. As the afternoon wore on, Jamie, always the adventurous one, decided to swim a bit further out from the shore. The water was cool and refreshing, and the sense of freedom he felt was exhilarating. He didn't notice the subtle shift in the river's current or the way the water seemed to ripple ever so slightly behind him. Unbeknownst to Jamie, a large saltwater crocodile had been lurking just beneath the surface, its eyes fixed on the unsuspecting boy. The crocodile, a creature of immense strength and deadly precision, had been lying in wait, perfectly still and nearly invisible in the murky water. It had been watching Jamie's movements, waiting for the right moment to strike. When Jamie swam a little too far from the safety of the shore, the crocodile seized its opportunity. With terrifying speed, the crocodile lunged out of the water, its massive jaws clamping down on Jamie's torso. The force of the attack was so sudden and overwhelming that Jamie didn't even have time to scream. The crocodile's powerful jaws crushed down on his body, pulling him under the water in an instant. The serene river, moments ago a place of laughter and joy, erupted into a scene of chaos and horror. Mark and Jane, who had been chatting near the picnic area, were alerted by the sound of splashing and the sudden absence of their son's laughter. When they turned towards the river, they were met with a sight that would haunt them forever. Jamie was gone, and in his place, the water churned violently, stained with blood. The realization hit them like a freight train. Jamie had been attacked. Without thinking, Mark grabbed the nearest object he could find, a large branch from a nearby tree, and sprinted towards the water. Jane's screams echoed in his ears, but his focus was entirely on saving his son. He waded into the river, the cold water soaking his clothes as he desperately searched for any sign of Jamie. The water was murky, making it difficult to see, but Mark refused to give up. He plunged the branch into the water repeatedly, aiming for the crocodile's head and snout, the only vulnerable parts of the beast. The crocodile, agitated by the sudden attack, thrashed wildly, dragging Jamie deeper into the water. But Mark, fueled by sheer adrenaline and the primal instinct to protect his child, kept fighting. He struck the crocodile again and again, each blow more desperate than the last. Finally, the crocodile, overwhelmed by the relentless assault, loosened its grip just enough for Mark to grab hold of Jamie and pull him free. With a final burst of strength, Mark hauled his son out of the water and onto the riverbank. Jamie was barely conscious, his body limp and his skin cold to the touch. He was bleeding heavily from deep gashes in his torso, but he was alive. Mark and Jane quickly wrapped him in towels, applying pressure to the wounds and trying to keep him awake. They knew they were far from medical help, but they couldn't afford to panic. As they rushed Jamie to the nearest hospital, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The attack had been swift and brutal, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilds of northern Australia. The river, once a place of fun and relaxation, had become a battleground between man and nature. Jamie had come within moments of death, and the experience left the entire family shaken to their core. January 1999, the summer heat was at its peak in Australia, and the coastal town of Port Carlisle was buzzing with activity. Tourists and locals alike flocked to the beach, eager to escape the sweltering temperatures. The beaches along this stretch of the coast were known for their clear waters and white sands, making them a favorite spot for families and young people. Among the crowds that day was 14-year-old Josh Carter, a towering boy for his age, already weighing over 200 pounds due to his large frame and athletic build. Josh was a natural athlete playing rugby at his school, and his size and strength made him a force to be reckoned with on the field. Josh was on vacation with his parents and a group of friends from school. They had spent the morning playing beach volleyball, eating snacks, and enjoying the sun. By early afternoon, the heat had become almost unbearable, and the group decided to cool off with a swim in the ocean. The beach was well patrolled, and though shark sightings were not unheard of in these waters, the area was generally considered safe for swimmers. Lifeguards kept a close watch, and the water was filled with families and children, all enjoying the cool relief from the summer sun. Josh and his friends splashed into the water, laughing and challenging each other to swim out to the deeper waves. The ocean was calm, the waves gently lapping against their bodies as they swam further from the shore. The sounds of seagulls filled the air, and the smell of salt water and sunscreen was strong. It was the perfect day, the kind of day that makes you forget about the dangers that can lie hidden beneath the surface. The boys swam out beyond the crowded shallows, where the water was deeper and the waves more challenging. Josh, always eager to prove himself, led the way, his strong strokes propelling him further out than the others. The water here was cooler, and the depth made it harder to see the bottom. But Josh wasn't concerned. He was confident in his swimming abilities and felt at home in the water. However, Josh and his friends didn't know that on this day a massive great white shark was patrolling the waters nearby. The shark, nearly 18 feet long, had been drawn closer to shore by the presence of seals and schools of fish, its natural prey. Great white sharks are apex predators, and their size and power make them one of the most feared creatures in the ocean. Though they rarely target humans, mistaking them for seals can lead to tragic encounters. As Josh swam further from the shore, his friends began to call out to him, urging him to turn back. But he was focused on the waves ahead, his mind on the thrill of the swim. The water around him was calm, the surface unbroken by any signs of danger. Yet beneath him, the great white shark had taken notice of the large figure moving through the water. In a flash, the shark moved. The calm water was shattered as the massive predator surged upwards, its powerful tail propelling it at terrifying speed. Josh barely had time to register the movement beneath him before the great white struck with a force that sent shockwaves through the water. The shark's jaws clamped down on Josh's side, the sheer power of the bite nearly cutting him in half. The impact was so sudden and violent that it knocked the breath from his lungs, and he was pulled under the water before he could even scream. The water, once clear and blue, turned crimson as blood poured from the wound. The shark's teeth, sharp as knives, tore through flesh and bone with ease, its powerful body thrashing as it tried to subdue its prey. Josh's friends, still swimming closer to shore, turned at the sound of the water's violent disturbance. Their eyes widened in horror as they saw the massive dorsal fin breaking the surface, the water around it stained with blood. Panic set in, and they began to shout for help, their voices filled with terror. On the beach, people began to notice the commotion. Lifeguards sprang into action, blowing their whistles and waving people out of the water. But it was already too late. The great white shark, driven by its predatory instincts, had pulled Josh deeper into the ocean. The boy's struggles were no match for the shark's strength, and with each thrash of its powerful tail, it dragged him further from safety. Josh's body was limp, the pain overwhelming as he tried to fight back. But the shark was relentless, its jaws crushing down with every bite. The water around them was a chaotic mix of blood and foam, the once peaceful ocean now a scene of unimaginable horror. The beach, so full of life just moments before, had fallen into stunned silence as onlookers watched the tragedy unfold. Despite the lifeguards' desperate attempts to reach him, the shark's assault was too much. It took Josh down once more, disappearing into the depths with its prey. The water slowly began to calm, the waves washing away the blood, leaving behind only the broken remains of a surfboard and the haunting memory of what had just occurred. The beach, once filled with laughter and joy, was now overshadowed by the brutal reality of nature's power. The attack left the community in shock, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the ocean's surface. Patrols were increased, and shark warnings became a common sight. But the memory of that day would linger long after the summer ended. It was a bright and sunny morning in the summer of 2009. The waves at Waikoloa Beach on the Big Island of Hawaii were perfect. Consistent swells rolling in, crystal clear water glistening under the sun. The beach was a favorite among locals and tourists alike, known for its stunning views and ideal surfing conditions. Among the surfers that day was 26-year-old Jenna Riley, a professional surfer who had spent most of her life chasing waves around the world. Hawaii was one of her favorite spots, a place where the ocean felt like home. Jenna had arrived early that morning, eager to catch the best waves before the beach became crowded. She had a few successful rides, the waves carrying her effortlessly to shore. The rhythm of the ocean, the thrill of the surf, it was all familiar, comforting. After riding a particularly exhilarating wave, Jenna decided to paddle out again, further than she had before, hoping to catch one of the larger sets forming on the horizon. As she paddled, the water around her was calm, almost serene. But beneath the surface, something was lurking. The waters of Hawaii, while beautiful, were also home to some of the ocean's most formidable predators. Among them, the tiger shark was one of the most feared. These sharks, known for their size and aggression, were not uncommon in Hawaiian waters, but attacks were rare enough that most surfers didn't think twice about them. Jenna, lost in her thoughts and the anticipation of the next wave, didn't notice the dark shape moving swiftly beneath her. The tiger shark, a massive creature with a reputation for unpredictable behavior, had spotted Jenna's silhouette from below. To the shark, her movement on the surfboard resembled that of a wounded seal, a common prey. Without warning, the shark made its move. Before Jenna could react, the shark surged upward, breaking the surface with terrifying force. Its powerful jaws clamped down on her leg, the impact so intense that it nearly knocked her off her board. Pain shot through her body as the shark's teeth sliced through flesh and muscle, the water around her instantly turning red. Jenna screamed in agony, the sound lost in the vastness of the ocean, her mind struggling to process the sudden brutal attack. The tiger shark, driven by instinct, began to thrash, trying to drag Jenna off the board and into deeper water. The sheer power of the animal was overwhelming, and for a moment, it seemed like the ocean itself was trying to pull her under. But Jenna's survival instincts kicked in. Despite the excruciating pain, she clung to her surfboard, using it as a shield to keep the shark at bay. Every movement was a fight for survival, every second a battle against the predator that had turned her day of surfing into a nightmare. Jenna's efforts to fend off the shark were frantic but determined. She kicked at the shark's snout with her free leg, desperately trying to keep it from getting a stronger grip. The water churned violently as the shark continued its assault, but Jenna refused to give up. She knew that if she let go, if she allowed herself to be pulled under, it would all be over. Nearby, other surfers had seen the commotion. Realizing the danger, they paddled towards Jenna as quickly as they could, fear gripping their hearts. They knew time was of the essence. The shark was relentless, but so was Jenna. With every ounce of strength she had left, she continued to fight, even as her leg throbbed with pain and her vision blurred from the blood loss. Finally, just as Jenna felt her strength waning, help arrived. 2 surfers reached her side, one of them striking the shark with his surfboard, causing it to release its grip momentarily. The others pulled Jenna onto their boards, the water still swirling with blood. They paddled furiously towards the shore, the adrenaline driving them forward, even as the shark circled one last time before disappearing into the depths. By the time they reached the beach, Jenna was barely conscious, her leg a mangled mess of torn flesh and bone. But she was alive. The attack had been brutal, a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the waves, even in a place as seemingly idyllic as Hawaii. As Jenna was airlifted to the hospital, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. She had come face to face with one of the ocean's deadliest predators, and had lived to tell the tale.